It is the third largest wild cat in the world, but in its natural habitat in South America, you would be very lucky to actually see one.
Jaguar, Jaguar, Jaguar.
Seeing jaguars in the wild can't be taken for granted. The animals are shy and suspicious, but they can still be found on the banks of Rio Paraguay. Douglas Trent wants to get as close to the animal as possible for his photographs. There is the cat again. This one clearly hasn't had any negative experience with humans. In the past, such an encounter would have been fatal for the jaguar. But Douglas Trent has something else in mind. The Pantanal is a huge mosaic of rivers, forests and savanna. It's more than 200,000 square kilometers and most of it is in Brazil. A single road runs through it in the north, the Transpantaneira. 30 years ago, it became a deadly trap. Like a giant dam, the Transpantaneira dammed huge masses of water in an unusually severe flood. More than 800,000 cattle drowned. Most Pantaneiros, as the locals are called, lost everything and had to leave their homes and possessions behind. The wilderness profited from the event. An estimated 50,000 jaguars live in the whole of America, and 8,000 of them here in the Pantanal. The jaguars in the Pantanal no longer have any enemies. Instead, they have a lot of natural prey. They are the largest of their kind. A full-grown male can weigh up to 140 kilograms. Biting through the doe's head is a breeze for him. Nobody is safe from these powerful cats. Only lions and tigers are bigger. Even caimans have reason to fear them. But jaguars prefer water hogs, capybaras. Only one species was able to pose a serious threat to this large cat: humans.
Right at the end, that.
Richard Mason was the jaguar hunter in the northern Pantanal. He still can imitate jaguar sounds to perfection.
So you occasionally hear.
Under his leadership, so-called problem jaguars were put down. Jaguars who were targeting cattle as prey. Even then, many hobby hunters paid a lot of money to be allowed to shoot a jaguar. In 1976, it became illegal to shoot them.
With a rancher at the Santa Rosa, Fazenda Santa Rosa, who said that he took out 11 Jaguars 2 years ago.
Douglas Trent is conferring with Jaguar specialists. He's telling them about a farmer who has already killed 11 Jaguars, but he would be willing to capture and relocate the Jaguars who hunt his animals.
Few Jaguars that are taking out cattle, he would like to see these animals trapped rather than killed.
However, Richard Mason still doesn't believe in relocating Jaguars because in most cases only old or sick cats hunt cattle. So what should be done with them instead? His solution is more radical, allowing them to be shot, but that's strictly prohibited. We're in the northern Pantanal. Douglas Trent and the Pantanero Jose de Silva are on an adventurous trip down Rio Paraguay. Rio Paraguay is the main river feeding and draining the entire Pantanal. The two men want to spend 10 days on this river and its distributaries to look for jaguars. Finally, they've reached their destination, the more than 14,000-hectare Tayama Reserve, close to the border to Paraguay. Douglas Trent wants to find out how many jaguars live here, and in order to do that, he has to photograph them from as close up as possible. The living conditions in the Tayama area are ideal for jaguars. Here there is always enough to eat for everyone. Over the past 3 years, Douglas has been able to use his photographs to identify 20 different jaguars. Behind every bend could be the sight he's been waiting for. Nobody can say how the cats will react if they feel threatened. There, the first jaguar on this trip. The two men are in luck. The big cat hasn't noticed them yet. Douglas wants to photograph the jaguar's face. He can use the individual markings on the fur to distinguish the animals. Then he can work out how many jaguars live here. The powerful animal just has to turn around. Finally, what will these photographs reveal about how jaguars live in the wild? A 1,000 kilometers further south, the Pantanal looks very different. Many gauchos, local cowboys, live here. Livestock farming and paddy fields still shape this landscape, but even here, so close to humans, jaguars are at home. And that often leads to conflicts. When it comes to livestock, the fazenda owners are very clear about what they want. When and how their cattle are killed is their business, they say. The San Francisco fazenda also kept losing cattle. The two scientists, Luciano Verdade and Fernando Azevedo, have been working with Roberto Coelho for a few years already. He owns the San Francisco Fazenda. Most of his neighbours still poison jaguars a lot of the time, but he wants to try to live with these big cats. Biologist Azevedo recently fitted a female jaguar with a transmitter. Professor Verdade is an expert on caimans, the jaguar's second favourite prey after capybaras. Roberto Coelho still lets the majority of his cattle roam free. This allows the biologist to research how jaguars can be prevented from hunting them. Wild animals on cultivated land. That requires clever management. Biologists all around the world are seeking ways to allow the coexistence of humans and wild animals. The paddy fields on the San Francisco Fazenda are an ideal stage for the Nandu or greater rhea to court his females. The researchers have discovered that jaguars are content with wild prey even on farmland. An intact environment in which the cats have enough food to hunt is a necessary condition. Capybaras, rodents related to guinea pigs, are jaguars' main prey. This is also true here on the San Francisco Fazenda in the southern Pantanal. Wild animals are under strict protection in Brazil, but many a pantaneiro doesn't take these rules that seriously. Shooting caimans is not allowed, but everyone knows that vultures would quickly remove the evidence. The crocodile-like creatures were ruthlessly hunted, just like the jaguars were before the protective measures were put into place, because their leather brought in a lot of money. The fierce appearance is deceptive. Caimans don't deserve their bad image, but it's not easy to arouse sympathy for them, which is why they almost went extinct in the 1980s. Things have changed. The owners of the San Francisco Fazenda care about a balanced caiman population again. Despite poaching, the caiman population has recovered over the past 40 years. Now there are around 30 million in the Pantanal again. We're back in the northern Pantanal. These ruins by the Rio Paraguay still testify to the wealth that existed here before the flood destroyed almost everything. The old village Douglas and his guides pass is also evidence of different times. The first settlers moved to the Pantanal just 200 years ago because of the gold here. After the gold rush, livestock farming became the main activity. During the two world wars, corned beef and dried meat were produced in the northern Pantanal for the Allies in Europe. In the small community of Descalvado, meat was dried in special clay pots. Many settlers grew rich on livestock farming, and at that time the days of the Jaguar seemed numbered. Today, the interests in the northern Pantanal have changed. Fishermen from all over Brazil fish in the Rio Paraguay. They have no idea how close they sometimes come to the most dangerous animal in Tayama Reserve. The mating season begins in September. Jaguars are solitary animals. They only pair up for a few weeks each year. Douglas and Jose will probably see these two cats together a fair bit in the near future. Here, near the station of the Brazilian Environmental Authority, IBAMA, it will be easy to find them again. Going on land is definitely risky. Jaguar tracks can be seen everywhere. One of the pantaneros knows how to read them. The tracks were made by a large jaguar and are quite fresh. Jose has every reason to be careful. Only pantaneros are allowed to fish in Tayama Reserve. The fishermen usually stay for a few days and sleep in tents. Jaguars generally avoid humans, but a few months ago a tragedy occurred here. Not far from this place, a young fisherman was killed by a jaguar. Jose found him. He's unable to forget these images. Since then, he has looked at jaguars in a different light. Is this jaguar a man-eater? Douglas doubts it, because the strong male seems to be in top shape. He would have no reason to prey on humans. So far there's no proof, but if he's found, it's bad news for the jaguar, even though it's illegal. For this kind of problem animal, some bullet can always be found. Meanwhile, in the southern Pantanal, Roberto Coelho and his gauchos are rounding up the most valuable cattle. The female jaguar with the transmitter is nearby. The wildcat shows up at regular intervals because her territory includes the fazenda. The breeder keeps a special eye on these bulls. Any injury would be a grave financial loss. A stock bull like this one is worth $50,000. The fazenda owner can sleep soundly tonight. But for others, it will be a long night. Researcher Luciano Verdade is on his way to the river with some students and the rangers from San Francisco Fazenda. Experienced gamekeepers know animals are easier to count at night because their eyes light up in the glare of headlamps. A couple of foxes can find food easily in a paddy field because the short stalks provide no cover. Again, there are tracks on the ground, but this one is too small to have been made by a jaguar. An ocelot, also known as Jaguar tyrica, a full-grown animal weighs around 15 kilograms. That's tiny compared with an average of 100 kilograms reached by its heavier relative. But the biologists are here for a different reason. The Cayman researcher wants to get a clear picture of the crocodiles on the San Francisco Fazenda. Catching them is the most dangerous moment. The sling has to be in exactly the right place. Luciano has a lot of experience and knows exactly how to handle the stressed animal. Without the rubber band, the caiman would bite in a flash. This one here is already 1.5 meters long, but the biologist has experience with 2-meter caimans. The pickup's cargo area is too small. The students aren't able to help Luciano here. The caiman has to be put back on the ground. That's the only place the biologist can implement his plan. On their backs, caimans go limp. Now everything has to go quickly. They want to cause as little stress as possible.
SVL 90.5.
The researcher is measuring the animal's body and head size. He wants to compare the data with caimans attacked by the jaguar. This will allow him to get an idea of the food available for jaguars on the San Francisco Fazenda. The biologist knows that jaguars only hunt caimans before the latter get too big. The more there are of these medium-sized caimans, the more likely it is that the jaguar will leave the livestock alone, the researcher thinks. The caiman has to be weighed, then the ordeal will be over. It's a young specimen and weighs around 20 kilograms. When it's fully grown, it will weigh more than twice as much. Finally, the researcher has to free the caiman from its muzzle. He avoids being bitten by doing it from a distance. A loop through the rubber band and a strong pull, and the caiman is free.
This width of triangular something
While they're still in the middle of counting the caimans, there seem to be enough here. Jaguar researcher Fernando Azevedo has found the female jaguar with the transmitter. And that's not all. She has to be here somewhere. Only the headlamps can find her because the transmitter around her neck is no longer working. The jaguar with the transmitter is not alone. Fernando estimates the cub to be around 9 months old. The transmitter needs replacing, but out of consideration for the cub, the researcher will have to wait. The experience they've gained over the past 2 years has taught the biologists that female jaguars prefer to hunt in the morning. That makes her different from night hunters such as owls. It's the mating season, but as long as she has a cub with her, the jaguar with the transmitter won't look for a new partner. The daughter is learning what her prey is and how she can kill it. Nobody knows what the female with the transmitter will hunt in the next few days. Maybe a deer, or perhaps even cattle. Today, the hind is safe. They're not hungry yet, but the near future will be formative for the young cat because this is when her food preferences will be decided. The San Francisco fazenda covers around 15,000 hectares. There's enough wild prey here for the jaguar and her cub. Anteaters are also on the menu. Big capybara families live next to the paddy fields. The choice of food is great, but in the south, the jaguars prefer to eat capybaras, the researchers have discovered. The wilderness has been able to reclaim some space for itself on the San Francisco fazenda. More than 350 bird species have settled here.